after so many awards, it's that time of the evening when I'm sure you're all ready for a drink and dinner and so forth. So I'm not sure I should speak for very long. But let me start by thanking Avatar and Saramount for inviting me. I must say that I was scheduled to be in Kerala tonight because I have to give a speech there in the morning. And because I had to come here, or I chose to come here, now I have to take a flight at 4:55 a.m., only to fly back at 11 o'clock in the morning back to Chennai. Uh, and then 4 o'clock to Madurai. So it meant that much to me to be here. And I want to maybe take 10 minutes to say why. But first, I want to say something I observed here, which is that so many companies are repeat winners year over year. And so many companies win in all the categories that you give awards to. And that's not surprising because I think what it takes to really get an award here is to create the right kind of culture. And as somebody who spent decades in corporate life and probably 30 years as an expatriate across various industries, I know that creating and sustaining cultures are really the hardest things to do, especially in large organizations that have been around for decades. But in fact, it is the distinguishing variable or the competitive edge that companies have. So I'm not surprised. And I want to use that as the jumping off point to say that Tamil Nadu and the Dravidian culture and the Dravidian politics, which our very witty and dangerous hostess here has alluded to. We are where we are today because of that culture. And I'll briefly start by saying that if Tamil Nadu is relatively successful today, of the large, well to do states, we are unique in progress across both economics, human development, relative social equity. And the root cause of that probably goes back to 1920-21 when the first Justice Party government was elected to office under diarchy and legislated in short order the right to vote for women, the right to stand for office, and effectively elementary education becoming compulsory for boys and girls, 1921, and then feeding them to ensure that they complied with compulsory education. So I speak often at many places, some events like this, sometimes formal government meetings. I used to be a member of the GST Council of India for a couple of years. I presented before the Finance Commission of India, the 15th one, led by Dr. N.K. Singh. And I have made all of these points there. I said, if you really want to get progress, don't incentivize poverty, don't incentivize the scale of population. Incentivize what percentage of girls get to go to school, what percentage get to stay in school, what percentage get to graduate from school, what percentage get to go into the employment pool and get equal access. And so, though these are profound philosophies, I would like to just give a few examples of what we've done in Tamil Nadu over the decades to have a relatively level playing field. And this goes back to the early days when there was a question of female infanticide and the notion of the cost of women or girl children. And one of the ways that we broke that was to say that marriages no longer needed to be expensive affairs. So Tamil Nadu legislated the Self-Respect Marriage Act, which said that you could just get together in front of elders and the community could declare the marriage done and the government would register it and you wouldn't have to go through all these expenses, which was one of the big reasons people were worried about having, girl children. Of course, we've had a reservation in jobs, reservation education. After our government came to office, I was the Minister for Finance and Human Resources of the government. We legislated the reservation in government jobs to go up to 40% from 30%. which means that effectively, in many of these cases, the actual female enrollment was more than 50%, because while 40% was reserved, the remaining 60% was open based on merit. So actually, women scored, significantly in that percentage as well. My chief minister made several campaign promises on behalf of the party during our election campaign related to women, and I just will list a few of the things that we have implemented. We extended the maternity leave period for women in government jobs to 1 full year. We provided free bus transportation for women so that they could have the independence to go and work without requiring transport from anybody or worrying about the cost of bus service. We rephrased the original incentive program for education, which was getting gold and money for getting married. And we reframed that and we said, we'll actually give you a continuous scholarship for as many years as you stay in Polytechnic or ITI or college. Because, and I said this on the floor of the assembly when I was finance minister, I said, 1 point, getting married used to be the highest aspiration. Now it should be economic independence based on your own education and your own skills and your own job. So we rephrased that program or reframed it. Starting last year at a pilot level and this year full time, all elementary school children in Tamil Nadu at government schools get free breakfast, frees up the women to be able to go and do their work without having to worry about cooking at 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. And finally, in the last month, our Chief Minister has fulfilled the campaign promise to deliver 1,000 rupees a month to women head of households as a supplemental income to the bottom of the pyramid. So these actions, I think, match the philosophy that we have had for more than 100 years from the 1921 legislation. And the consequence of that, I'd like to say, we see in the results. Roughly 90% of girls at 18 graduate high school in Tamil Nadu. That is not true of all states. It's not even true of all rich states. Even relatively rich states like Gujarat, that number is closer to 50%. 42% of women employed in manufacturing, and this is probably the best statistic I'll give you today. 42% of all women employed in manufacturing in India work here in Tamil Nadu alone. We are 6% of the population, and we have that many high paid manufacturing jobs in Tamil Nadu. So these, I think, are a good complement to what you have all been talking about, what I remember from my years in the corporate world about the value of diversity, of inclusion, of how important it is to match the makeup of your team to the makeup of the society you aim to serve as a bank, as a FMCG company, as any other big corporate. And in fact, I was, by coincidence, reading in my email today from the Financial Times a study that was put out by BlackRock, the big investment company, and came out, I think, in the last couple of days. And it shows that companies that have more representation of women end up having outperformance in actually stock returns and performance. And this is a big study that came out. It's a public document. But it shows that there's been some improvement. There's a 29% outperformance by companies that are more diverse. And yet the glass ceiling is still quite persistent because this representation goes down as the level of seniority increases. I will just touch on a couple of experiences of my own as I conclude. And the first thing I want to say is at least 9 of the 10 companies that won here I have either traded with when I was a trader on Wall Street, or I've worked for as a consultant, or I've hired them as a consultant to my company, or I have friends in relatively high office, mostly because of our age. We're all reaching that age where my friends are like in Citigroup or in IBM or in other companies close to the C-suite or in the C-suite. So I'm not surprised that such large global firms tend to outperform. But I was also very happy to hear that in the first year of this award, it was almost 100% multinationals, and now of the top 100, maybe 60% are local companies, so the culture is spreading. I'll just say that in my own case, I grew up, though I went to boarding school and it was co-educational, at some level I didn't really understand the value of inclusion or diversity till I went to the US. And in grad school, many of my professors, including one of my PhD advisors, was a woman. And I understood the great value of having strong women leaders, both in advisory capacity and mentoring capacity. That continued during my term in consulting. Many of my clients and my contract writers, the executives at the large companies I work for, were actually women who gave me the contract, and the level of empathy and the human perspective that they brought to the role impressed me. I spent some time on Wall Street. My earliest mentors as traders, and I was an anomaly on Wall Street. I was, I think, the oldest associate in the history of Lehman Brothers at the age of 35. I made it to MD by 42, so that was okay. But when I went in, the language was alien to me, the culture was alien to me, I didn't understand anything, and there were two senior traders who were women who actually helped me navigate and come up the system. At StanChart, I prided myself that when I was global head of a few products, I had the most number of women managing directors and directors who reported to me of any vertical in my trading business. And in my term in public service, oh, actually, I must also say that at Lehman, when I set up a global capability center, as they're called now, probably the most advanced one in the world at the time, I found that because we recruited only at IITs at the undergraduate level, we got too much groupthink, and it was about 90% plus male. So in the 2 years that I shaped the program, we expanded to go to non-IITs, both in engineering, but also non-engineering schools. And so we went to places like Xavier's and St. Stephen's and LSR and SRCC and so forth. And in 2 years, the ratio changed from 95% male to probably 60% male, 40% female in the 2 years that I ran the recruiting. And it created a much better, diverse pool. And though Lehman went bankrupt, I'm very happy to say that almost all the people I recruited in those years have gone on to have brilliant careers in finance, in hedge funds, in asset managers around the world. Very few of them are in India now, though this operation was in Mumbai. In public service, when I became an MLA, I focused a lot on the pressure points of women's everyday lives, which is fair price shops or ration shops. I built many of them. And I built about 13 Anganwadis or early child care centers using my MLA constituency development funds. I've continued to focus on those areas as a minister, and most importantly, I would say the big initiative I've taken in my 2.5 years as minister is to create self-help groups in tailoring, in computer training, in nursing, in product making, and we get them orders, we get them loans, and we get them customers, and we make sure that they are a viable business and they can stand on their own. And I suspect the first time I stood for election, I won by about 5,000 or 6,000 votes. The second time by about 34,000 and change votes. If I run again, I suspect that number will be more than 50% because I have focused on these self-help groups and empowered these women. But at any rate, for these reasons, I think I accepted the invitation, cut down my sleep, hopefully didn't bore you to death. I'm petrified at what our host is going to say, say about me. But I'm very, very happy to be part of this event, to congratulate all the winners, to wish you continued success in your efforts to make a more diverse, more successful, inherently more equitable and inclusive workspace, and set the example based on your success for others to follow and I wish you a fun evening. Thank you very much.